Good evening, folks. Good evening. I've given it an extra 5 minutes so that the stragglers can straggle on in, but we'll get started. Start with the picture that's on the first slide that I'm showing. I go to my good friend Susan Brazelton, who is a miraculous photographer. And I ask her, how can she help me dress up my presentation? And she sent me a whole bunch of pictures. And you see one of them there. You're going to see a whole bunch more of them because I looked at those pictures and I said, I'm supposed to talk about the state of Morgan Hill. What better way to show the state of Morgan Hill than to show these beautiful pictures that Susan has provided for us? So there's nothing new in the photos that I'll show you. It's our same old Morgan Hill that we've had in place for quite a while. Nothing new, but really a beautiful, beautiful community. She always seems to get El Toro in so many of her pictures. It's really great. Downtown again. Outdoor dining in the rain. And the church downtown, the Morgan Hill House, and just some of the beautiful flowers in the planters. Just a gorgeous picture of Morgan Hill. So I'll go now to my kind of standard format where we're going to recognize some people. We're going to talk about where we've been, and we're going to talk about where we're going, and then we're just going to open it up to any questions you want to ask or whatever. We do have one handout in the table over there, which really explains very concisely on one piece of paper, front and back, where we're going. But we'll spend a little bit of time going over that. Encourage you to take a copy when you leave. So I always start with recognition of my number one supporter. She always gets the biggest hand. It's amazing how that works. But no, she's been with me. This is the 11th time we've given this State of the City. She's been with me all the way, and I appreciate the support that she gives. Next is the City Council, and not just the City Council, but the City Council supported by the City Attorney and the City Manager. And we have a couple of things to point out on that picture. Number one is when I showed the picture last year, I had a dummy in there for the City Attorney. A dummy picture. And so one of our number one objectives last year was to fill the city attorney's role. And Don Larkin joined us, and he has been with us now for, 9 months or so? And doing an outstanding job. A couple more people that weren't in the picture last year. First, you see Renee Spring on the right next to the city manager. Renee was elected to the City Council in November. And then we had a resignation from the City Council. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But we had to find a way to replace that person. And we went through an interview process where 30 people applied. And Caitlin was the one who rose to the surface, absolutely. And so Caitlin Yakimovich is now one of us, and it's really great. But when you say hello to a couple of really, really good council members that you're going to be working with for the next few years, and you're really looking forward to it, but at the same time, you look and you've lost a couple as well. And we've lost Marilyn Liebers, who was with us for 8 years and just did an outstanding job as a council member. Just a real member of the team, a teammate all the way, and really did a fantastic job. And then, better go backwards. Gordon Siebert on the right is the one who had to resign. His wife's health necessitated a move, and so they moved out of state, and that's why he had to be replaced. He was with us for 6 years and just also had this perspective. He had worked for cities for many, many, many years. In fact, he was working for another city a lot of the time that he was serving us on the council, and just had the perspective of having been in a staff role and able to ask the kind of questions that we, the rest of the council members, really didn't have the background or knowledge to be able to ask. So he'll really be missed too. So we tribute both of those. We also, and many of our commissioners are here this evening. I think the Planning Commission was meeting all afternoon. We'll talk about what they were doing in just a minute. But we had our Planning Commission, our Parks and Recreation Commission, or the PRC, our Library, Culture, and Arts Commission, or the LCAC, and the Youth Action Council, the YAC, all supporting the City Council in what to do for youth in terms of the YAC, for the cultural aspects of the city and the library, and the recreational aspect of the city with the PRC. We also had, until about mid-year last year, in place a General Plan Advisory Committee. And they worked very, very hard. And one of the things that they had to work on was the residential development control system, the update of that was going to be put on the ballot. And so we had a whole bunch of Planning Commission, the General Plan Advisory Committee was making suggestions to the Planning Commission, was making suggestions to the City Council to get that whole job done. It was a monumental thing to do, and we got it all done. I show these pictures of the individuals on top there. Those are our employees of the year. Hillary Holman is up there on the left, and as you can see, very plainly see, her job is to support the city manager. So that's what she's doing there. She is in the city manager's office, and she is kind of the jack of all trades for the city manager's office, does an outstanding job of getting done whatever needs to get done. And Richard Guzman on the left is a member of our utilities team, who have really been working hard the last couple of weeks, as you can imagine. But he is just really known for his outgoingness, his willingness to get anything done at any hour of the day. His teammates love him. He's got their support of all the teammates that he works with. And so these two employees kind of reflect what the city team is all about, the people that work for the city of Morgan Hill. They kind of represent the city, and I show and congratulate our employees of the year just as representative of all of our employees in the city. Those are teammates that just do a wonderful job for you and for support of the city council. And don't ever want to leave out our partners that we have very close. I mean, they're our teammates too. We call them teammates as well. Chief Whitmer, CAL FIRE, and the YMCA that helps run the CRC is the driving body there. So don't want to leave them out, our teammates. They're very valuable. And then we have other partnerships. We work regionally with so many groups. There's so many acronyms up there. Morgan Hill Unified School District, upper right. The Santa Clara County Cities Association at the top. The Downtown Association right underneath that. The Santa Clara Valley Water District and the Honorable John Varela that represents us for the Water District and it chairs the Water District Board this year. We have Santa Clara County, and our representative there is the Honorable Mike Wasserman, our county supervisor. Up under the Morgan Hill Unified School District, we have a new thing that we're talking about this year. It's about to launch in April. We'll talk about it a little bit more later on, but it's Silicon Valley Clean Energy. Down below, we have the Chamber, don't want to do that. We have the Chamber of Commerce, of course, that are very close working with us. The Valley Transportation Authority, where we get all our buses and roads and everything, we work through them. Our sister city, we have a committee for the sister cities. The League of California Cities, LCC, the Santa Clara County Library that runs our library right next door to us. The Honorable Zoe Lofgren represents us in Congress. Honorable Bill Monning represents us in the California Senate, and the Honorable Ana Caballero is our assembly member. Once more, was before and is again. As we go into what we accomplished last year, I just want to start out with doing something that I also did last year. We asked you to conserve water. And you, the public, just stepped up unbelievably. We set records for how much water was saved. We were the leading city in all of Santa Clara County, and I think pretty high up in terms of the entire Bay Area. So just wanted to thank you for that. It seems kind of weird now that we have to save that we had to save so much water, but when you see a real need like that and just step up, it just shows the spirit of the community of Morgan Hill, that you will step up, you will help out, and it just permeates the whole community and makes Morgan Hill really a special place that it really is. So thank you for that. Now, other things we accomplished, these are not our accomplishments. That's not the right thing to say. These are things that happened in Morgan Hill without our help, kind of. Some of them we had a little help with. And these are things that are not in our downtown. We had Dick's Sporting Good open over off Cochran and the La Quinta Hotel, and we've already seen remarkable increase in transit-oriented tax collections as a result of La Quinta being open. So that's a definite economic boon to us that it opened. Now I'm going to show you a whole bunch of slides that really center on the downtown, because that seems to be the center of what's happening in Morgan Hill over the last year or so, and where things are really kind of changing and going forward. We opened a garage. That was definitely a project of the city to open the garage with some artwork, and we had a retail, the Orange Theory Fitness is there, and the Coffee Guys, and those are the Coffee Guys out in front of their shop, so we had retail open there as well. And down in the right, you see where you can go out and, sit under the trees, do your, get on the internet, do whatever you need to do out there. It's going to really be a popular spot in the summer. It's maybe not where you want to be tonight. But the Granada Theater. So many people in Morgan Hill had a dream of maintaining the Granada Theater, making it come back, making it come alive. There were a lot of people very skeptical about whether that was really a feasible thing to have happen. And I was one of those people. I was quite skeptical. But there it is. It's open. It's having shows. It's rentable. It's an event center. And so it's underway. Next door to it, not there yet, a little too many mud puddles right now, but next door to it is going to be the Granada Hotel. And that's a picture of it looking southeast, looking at the southeast corner of First Street, and it's on the corner there. And then the back of it, the Granada Theater is immediately to the right of what you're looking at. So that's the back of the hotel, which is really kind of the main entrance to it. You'll be coming in to the parking lot there to get into the hotel. And this is Barley Place. And Barley Place is going to be located right next to where Running Shop and Hops is. You see Running Shop and Hops and what they're doing on top there. They're kind of right next to the 16 different units that are going to be built as part of Barley Place, under construction now. If you look at 3rd and Monterey on the east side, you see construction going on, a large building going up. Well, what's that all about? Don't have a real rendering of exactly how it's going to be situated, but what's going to be there are 4 different restaurants. You see them listed there: Willard Steakhouse, Moe's Taco, and Opa will all be located in that complex that's going up there right now. Now, that necessitated moving the pop-up park that we had that was so very, very popular. But thanks to the largesse and the support of Dan McCraney, who owns the lot at 2nd and Monterey on the west side, southwest side, he essentially sponsored the whole relocation of the pop-up park over to his lot. And his lot is not going to be the permanent home of the pop-up park because he's going to build a restaurant, a wine tasting facility, an art gallery with rooftop dining and so forth. So that's what's going to replace the pop-up park that's there. And I'll tell you a little bit later what we're going to do to replace the pop-up park. We have plans for that as well. If you go further down 3rd Street on the corner of Depot and 3rd on the north side, City Ventures is building, I think it's 31 units, about 30 units of some of which are going to be upstairs, downstairs, where you can have your business downstairs, live upstairs. And then on the 3rd Street side, there will be some retail there. We do want to see retail on 3rd Street as part of the downtown specific plan that we have. And then across the street from him, right now, is a big empty lot that used to have some buildings on it where fruit was processed. And it was called Sunsweet because Sunsweet was the people that did the fruit processing. Empty now, but looking from where City Ventures is building their project, there's going to be 83 units of 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and studio rental units that'll be part of the Sunsweet property, making our downtown with those units that I showed you, that City Ventures is doing, that Leslie Miles is doing at Barley Place. That's just populating the downtown and giving it the vigor and the enthusiasm that it needs to really be the kind of downtown that we're trying to build through our downtown specific plan. Okay, so last year we did our annual retreat. We called it retreat last year. We don't call it retreat anymore. We call it advance now because we don't want to ever go backwards. But what we came out of that with was a lot to do, 44 things. We called them rocks. We used rocks to signify what we were doing. So we came out of our planning, and last year, if you came to this State of the City, you saw me explain all 44 of those different rocks going forward. And here they are, a list of 44 of them. I'm sure you can read them. But I just want to do a little report card on how we did on the 44 rocks and give you some perspective. Oops, I went one too far. There's green marks. They're very hard to see. It's very faint on the projector, I guess. But there's green marks next to 22 of the 44 items. In other words, we completed half the items that we set out to do. Okay? We can add 4 more that we add with the red marks because there are things that are just about complete. We got them pretty far done in the year. They have a couple of weeks, maybe a month left to go, and they'll be completed too. So that brings us up from 50% to about 60% that we got done. And then we did something else to look at some more of them. And we can check off 11 more of them that we think they were not projects in the sense they have a start date and an end date. These are projects that are ongoing, that really don't have an end date. We have to keep plugging away at them all the time. There's one section there called communications, and I think you can understand very easily that we will never not keep trying to improve our communications. It can always improve. So those are kind of things that are ongoing. We had divided these into categories: planning the community, developing the community, improving the services that we provide. We had one whole section kind of set aside for communications itself. And then finally, we had an area called getting involved regionally, having influence regionally, being able to advance Morgan Hill's interests by better representation regionally. So those were the 5 areas that we summarized and put on all our agendas last year and so forth. And I'll go over some of the accomplishments. I'm not going to go through 44 different things. But I did want to make the point that we got a lot of ongoing things that we'll keep working on. We got a lot of things accomplished that set the stage for having to do more work. When you do a lot of planning, which is the upper left-hand category, you put plans in place, then you have to go execute the plans after you've done the planning. So we have that kind of follow-on thing that we have to do. And I don't think that's better, couldn't be better exemplified than by the completion of our general plan. We updated the general plan and we updated the residential development control system. We had a residential development control system in place that was approved by the voters called Measure C, and then we put Measure S on the ballot, and that was passed by nearly 80% of the voters to keep growth control going. But what you don't get out of that is the amount of work that you've created for yourself by passing Measure S, because Measure S is half the story. You have to put the process in place. Some of our planning commissioners just got out of a meeting that's been going on for 3 hours in the conference room next door that are working on a residential development control system implementation guide as to how it'll be implemented. So even though we check off that we did the general plan update and we did the RDCS update, we still have work that's ongoing and will be ongoing for quite a while to get them all ironed out and in place. Couple of things in this room tomorrow night. We're going to dedicate our city council meeting to looking at first at 5:30, the public safety master plan is coming forward. The 2 chiefs that are, well, they have a chair between them sitting over there, David Swing and Derek Whitmer, are going to be talking about public safety and the plan that they have had put together. And like I say, you know, they're going to present the plan, we're going to adopt the plan, and then they're going to have to do a whole bunch of work because we adopted the plan that says let's do these things. And so the same is true with the bicycles and trails and parks and recreation master plan. We'll be hearing that as part of our 7 o'clock meeting tomorrow night. So that's tomorrow. Come on back. It'll be fun. This is our library, and I'm a library fanatic. I really love the library. And we have expansion plans for the library, and you see what we're doing there. We're expanding the entry so that there's going to be a little cafe there, the bigger entry area. We're going to expand the Friends of the Library bookstore. There's going to be an entry to the bookstore from the patio in the corner there. And it's about doubled in size, which still probably isn't big enough. If I've worked in the bookstore, I know how crowded it can get. In the back area, you see expansion of reading areas for the public, and even an outdoor area down there on the left. And then up on the right, a lot of expansion, a 75% expansion of the children's area. So a lot more area for them. So this is exciting. Development going on, affordable development. These are 3 different sites, and I don't know how many of you are really old timers, but I can tell you that the Tobiano site is the old St. Catherine's Parish Hall. The Tavero site is the old Super Taqueria, where it originally got founded and started. And Palomino is John Carlo's restaurant down almost all the way to Tennant Avenue. So those are the sites, and we call this a scattered site development because it's 3 different sites. And different number of units, I forget what the total is, maybe about 30 to 40 units total. That was supposed to kick off this morning. We were supposed to break ground on that this morning. We didn't do it. Would have been a challenge, but we did postpone it. So it's coming up. The inclusive playground was one of our 44 sites or tasks to undertake. And we've made good progress on that. We have identified some funds that we as a city can put toward that. There's private fundraising going on that is having some success going forward. And there's the possibility of the county doing some things that could really put this, maybe not, I don't think we have anything that puts it over the top, but we can do this in phases and we can get the whole thing started if we can maybe get some of that county money that they're talking about. And this is the parks downtown. The one element of the downtown plan that we've been working on this is kind of the final step, is completing the parks that we as a public entity are going to build in the downtown. On the right, you see the park that's going to go in on Depot Street, right south of where the train station is right now, right south of Jaunty's. And that's going to have all kinds of the things that the pop-up park has and a lot more. It's going to have a railroad theme. They can ride in railroad kind of cars and just all kinds of playthings that they'll have there. And then the picture on the left is the park that is it's up 3rd Street to the west of Monterey. You go 1 block, you get to a bridge, you cross that bridge, and to the right there's a whole area that goes down to where the water comes through. It'll have a bridge over that water. You see the brown thing in the lower right-hand corner? That's the existing bridge that will be replaced. 3rd Street will become a one-way street going to the west and up. And then at the top of the hill on the left, where the water tank is, you saw the picture Susan Brazelton did of from the water tower that also showed El Toro. But around kind of surrounding the water tower will be all kinds of exercise capabilities, perhaps a slide. We're going to talk about that again tomorrow night. But hiking trails up there. You can hike all the way to 5th Street on the trails up there. One of our tasks last year was to not do a 1-year budget, but to do a 2-year budget, to convert from doing single year to 2 years at a time. And not only did our staff come up with a 2-year budget very successfully, but they came up with this budget in brief document that I just encourage every single resident of Morgan Hill to read that. It's short, to the point, just nets out exactly what our budget is, what we're trying to accomplish, and so forth. Really a fantastic enhancement in terms of communication, if we can get people to read it, right? That's the hard part. Communication. These are various methods of communications. And as I said earlier, what I've learned about communication is that the more you do and the better you do, the more the demand's going to be for you to do even better than that. It just keeps building and building and building. And Maureen is doing a fantastic job of email blasts, next door blasts, on Facebook, on this, on that. We're doing copies, we're doing other kinds of things to get new residents acquainted with the city and things like that. So the communication is improving and will continue to improve, and we'll always keep working on it because it can always improve even more. I gave the acronym of Silicon Valley Clean Energy. That's a conglomerate of 11 cities. It doesn't include Santa Clara, Palo Alto, or San Jose, or Milpitas, who have other sources of supply for their power. But this is giving a lot greener energy than PG&E provides, and it is automatically enrolled. You don't have to do anything to be enrolled in Silicon Valley Clean Energy. And that way you'll get 50% renewable energy. You're purchasing 50% renewable energy. If you want to get 100% renewable, you have an option to do that. With 50% renewable, you'll save 1% for the first 2 years over the PG&E rates. If you opt up to the Green Prime, I think it's called, option, then you get 100% clean energy at a slight, you have to pay a little bit more for it, but it boils down to. But that's a new Joint Powers Authority that's been created and met for about the last year. This transition will take place in April. So if you've gotten in the mail that card, if you've gotten that in the mail, then you are ready to become a customer of Silicon Valley Clean Energy. Your bill will still arrive from PG&E. The lines that carry it are still PG&E's lines. There's no change to your wiring or anything like that. It's all transparent. We were successful. We supported 2 different ballot measures that were county-wide. Measure A for affordable housing, which carried the voters of Santa Clara County, and we think we're in very good stead to be able to benefit in terms of affordable housing from that. Affordable housing, and a large part of the funds from Measure A are going to go to housing the homeless as well. We don't have a huge homeless problem here, but we do have some, and we want everybody to be housed and to be safe and so forth. And then Measure B was a transportation measure that we got together with the other cities in Santa Clara County. They all put in what they wanted, we put in what we wanted, and we bargained back and forth, because even though this gets us a significant amount of money, there's never enough money to go to do everything that needs to be done. What we got money for is to complete what we call the Hale Avenue extension, which it takes Hale that currently dead ends at Main Street, and it'll attach now to it attaches to, what is it? DeWitt. I'm trying to make a Del out of D. DeWitt up near Spring, so that it'll provide a through access on the west side of town. Measure B also is going to provide us about $800,000 a year towards road maintenance. Now, that sounds like that's fantastic, that we're going to fix all our road problems. It doesn't even come close. The city council itself has set aside in the next, 2 years beyond this, $1 million a year for road maintenance. So this will make it 1.8. Senator Bill has SB 1 that he has proposed in the Senate, which would give us more. It puts another $40 billion, I think, into local roads, which is fantastic if we could get that passed. And still, it's not enough. It's still not enough, unfortunately. We need, like $5 million a year to just get ourselves whole. So we still have a void, even with Measure B, even with Senator Bill's measure and so forth. And potholes, everybody. I just hit one driving up here tonight on Wright Avenue. Everybody, the rain is just digging them deeper and so forth. So we're trying to stay on top of that, and obviously we can't take care of them all at once, so be careful, please be careful. One other thing that we are going to get out of Measure B, though, is an additional train. We were committed an additional train and a reschedule to more convenient hours for the train service to Morgan Hill. We were declared an age-friendly city. We were the first city in Santa Clara County that was nationally accredited as an age-friendly city. And we're just doing so many great things for our seniors. We have the social club that was started. We're trying to figure out a better transportation problem, a better way to transport our seniors in terms of convenience schedules and so forth. While VTA is talking about reducing bus service to South County, we're trying to figure out how to do more for our seniors and other people that need transportation help. So that's a challenge. High-speed rail, I'm not finished talking about high-speed rail, but we did come quite a long way with high-speed rail in the last year, given that we really don't have any decision-making power whatsoever with high-speed rail. But they did give us money to figure out how we could best advise them to treat us and those kind of things, and we were able to hire a consultant that actually came up with a route for high-speed rail that was less impactful than the existing routes we had been looking at. But as much as you say, it's less impactful, it still impacts somebody. It still impacts people. And we feel strongly that if they could just figure out how to use the 101 right away and not disturb anything, even if they have to slow down and not meet their time commitments, it would still be far preferable to any disruption whatsoever in the community. So I'm going to show you that again later. That's what we're going to be working for with high-speed rail. It's one of the things that we are carrying forward. As we had 44 rocks last year, we have 5 boulders this year, including high-speed rail. One of the things that we did last year was to state maybe what was kind of obvious to a lot of us, but wasn't understood by everybody in the community. We made a statement. We didn't pass a resolution where there was a bunch of whereases and things like that, because we were really trying to communicate with you and other members of the community that felt threatened or felt fearful or whatever else. And so we just tried to make it kind of a memo to the community that hate crimes will not be tolerated, our police will not be used for federal immigration enforcement, and constitutional rights will be protected. And please, as a member of the Morgan Hill community, please be respectful of the rest of the Morgan Hill community and everybody else. And this kind of gets us into the social consciousness area, which maybe we're going to be more a part of it going forward. So that's some of the highlights from last year, some of what we accomplished. There's a whole bunch else. I obviously can't cover it all. But we wanted to, I really can't read that. Oh, you can on the television. We wanted to, I guess the current in phrase is putting a lens on things, putting a lens on making Morgan Hill more of a sustainable community. And so that's what we talked about at our retreat that we had on the 27th and 28th of January this year, was how do we, what kinds of things do we need to do to make Morgan Hill a more sustainable community? And by that, and this is what's covered on the handout that we have for you to take with you, we mean that, being socially responsible, being environmentally conscious, being economically sound, that's always, a requirement. And we're doing this in a way that we're not only embracing inclusiveness and trying to include the entire community. We don't want to just include them, we want to involve them. We want them to participate. We want them to be, really all of us be teammates and work together for the betterment of our community. So we're going to be looking at doing some things in those areas. We haven't given up on our ongoing priorities. We still have the same ongoing priorities. We're not letting go of any of them. In fact, as a matter of fact, we've kind of added to them a little bit. Enhancing public safety, always. We'll be looking at that public safety master plan tomorrow night, implementing things that it recommends so that we can put our money where our mouth is in terms of enhancing public safety. Environmentally conscious means protecting the environment, and we're going to do that. Oops. Maintaining fiscal responsibility. We got the 2-year budget now. We'll be doing a midterm look at it. That doesn't mean we're going to redo a new budget, but we do have to make sure that we're on track and do kind of a check-in halfway through. We had an ongoing priority that says support our youth. And we decided with our social, responsibility thing, we're not really talking about just our youth, we're talking about everybody. So we took youth out of the statement and then said, well, we still have an emphasis on youth and we don't want to not say youth. So we came up with a statement that says, we want to support our youth, we want to support our seniors, and by the way, we want to support all of our community, the whole thing. So we'll be looking at doing that. Our organization, our teammates are just a wonderful work-together team approach. They can always improve. It's kind of like communications. You can always work better, always do things that make things better. So we're looking at the organization and making it more positive as we go forward. The public trust, we want to cultivate it. We want to do the best we can do to have your trust completely. That will make us foster better the inclusiveness part of what we're trying to accomplish and everything else. And then we added preserving our cultural heritage. So that's another thing that we're going to be focusing on going forward, and it's a new one that wasn't there last year. Now, we have 5 boulders, not 44 rocks, just 5 boulders. And the carryover of high-speed rail is one of them, getting our state representatives, Anna and Bill Monning, involved in supporting us. Everything that we can do to convince them to keep it in the 101 corridor is what we're number 1 priority. But number 2 priority, since we have no real power to make that happen, is to have the least impact in terms of where they do put it in Morgan Hill and get the most in return. Maybe there's some things they can do in terms of one of our other boulders is telecommunications. Maybe there's some help that they can do in terms of bringing that to us. Inclusiveness. Talked a little bit about this. This is involving everybody within the community, celebrating the fact that we are a community. We do a lot of that already with Friday night music, Taste of Morgan Hill, all those kinds of things. But we want to celebrate cultural differences and do just more of that kind of stuff, and bring the entire community out when we're doing it. The next is infrastructure. What I told you was in terms of the roads, fixing the roads, maintaining them going forward, along with the street, the curb and gutters and other things that go with roads, is maybe a $5 million a year thing where we maybe can get to $2 or $3 million, but how do we plug that other hole? We were looking at maybe going out and putting something on the ballot last November that would give us a tax. There is no tax in Morgan Hill. We get sales tax, we get property tax, we get the transient occupancy tax, but there is no tax like Gilroy has with their utility tax, like San Jose has with their utility tax, and the San Jose just recently passed an additional tax last year that they'll be collecting. We have none of those. So we thought to really make the roads and our infrastructure a whole, that we could maybe do that. And we did some polling and found out that we would not be supported, so we did not put it on the ballot. So now we're looking at just better ways to maybe communicate, to see and really see whether we can get that support. I think it's a quality of life issue. It's a reputation of your community issue. When somebody comes down here and drives down the road and hits 6 or 7 potholes, it just is not a good image of the community. We want that part of the community to shine like so many other parts, as you saw in the pictures earlier on. So we're looking for ways to do that, and we'll keep working on it. I talked about telecommunications. We think telecommunications is very important. We want to develop economically. We want to bring new businesses here. And maybe the first or third or second question they'll ask is, well, how's your broadband? How much work can I get done? And it's just becoming such a critical issue that we think we need to focus on it, to really communicate to prospective people that may want to come to Morgan Hill that we understand that that's a problem and that we're working on it. So we'll be looking at innovative ways of partnering maybe regionally with other entities to get things done. And finally, the whole area of regional partnerships and regional participation. We're going to keep that as one of our boulders. We had it as one of our areas last year. Now we're carrying it forward as kind of one thing, but it implies so many different kinds of partnerships with our representatives at the congressional and state level, with Silicon Valley Clean Energy, the library, the Cities Association, the League of California Cities. There are just so many things that we want to go after and see if we can leverage more support for Morgan Hill out of our regional partnerships. So those are our 5 boulders. They're described very, very well and very succinctly on the one-page handout that you have. I can't emphasize it enough. I've shown you some of the things we're going to work on, some of the things that are left over from last year. Safety first is always, whatever happens safety-wise, where there's any kind of need to do something to patch it up, that'll always be first. So safety first, we'll always look at that. Parking has become an issue. As the downtown evolves, we opened a parking garage. It's fantastic. It's not very well populated most of the time, but it's fully populated some of the time. And it's impacting other areas of the downtown in terms of parking. So even though we completed a study as recently as year before last, we're going to go back and look at it again. We have a session, I think it's March 15th, where we're going to bring it back to the council and talk about where is parking now and what do we need to do about it. The economic blueprint is just about to be presented to the Chamber of Commerce. I think first thing tomorrow morning it's going to be presented to the Chamber of Commerce. And again, when you put a plan together, it's called a blueprint, but it really is a plan, and it addresses telecommunications as well as economic development. As soon as you do that, you're going to get things you have to do. So that we're definitely anticipating some workload in terms of economic development. Flood control has been on the books since the 1950s. I've made a big deal out of it in a lot of my previous State of the City addresses. We're not giving up on that. It's still there. We're making great progress. This year could see the breaking of ground for at least a part of the bypass that's going to go through Lake Silvera. So there may be construction going on this year on flood control. But it wouldn't get into really big construction until like 2019. But I mean, to actually see that there could be a shovel in the ground is so much better than what it's been over the last 10, 20 years. So it's going very, very well. This is something we decided at our last city council meeting we weren't going to worry about too much this year. We're going to find out, kind of pay attention to what everybody else is doing, and kind of not be on the bleeding edge, but see what working and elsewhere and so forth in terms of marijuana, and the fact that it is legal now and will be more legal in 2018, but we're going to wait till closer to it then. But we still need to pay attention to go to some of the seminars that are being put on and those kind of things. There's just a wealth of opportunity to get trained, but we think we want to wait for a little while more, but it was on our list. So those are, some of the things that we're focused on and some of the things that we expect to have happen going forward. And with that, I'll show you another one of Susan's lovely pictures, and same one I used last year, but I love it. So, are there any questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Are there any questions? Jody?
I just wanted to clarify, so the Orchard Ranch buildings, those are low-income housing?
Yes.
Okay, and then also, you brought up the parking, but I began to think about, downtown with those new, like apartments going in, I think some are condos. I mean, where could that be? Is there a spot for their parking garage? I mean, where could more parking come from for all those new homes, dwelling places downtown?
Well, every development is fully parked according to the statute of what it needs in terms of parking places per resident ratio.
Oh, so there's going to be parking on those. Okay, I didn't realize there's actually parking as part of those. Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. Okay.
Yeah. There still is concern, like you're expressing, is that enough? And that's kind of what we're going to look at again on March 15th.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Good question. Anybody else? I know that there's cookies and stuff out there. So if you want to grab a cookie and do this more informally, we can certainly do that. Go ahead.
The road you're talking about that's going to go from Maine all the way to DeWitt,
Yeah.
what route is that going to hit? Where are you planning on building that road? And it's going to be just one lane each way, two
It's
lanes
one
each
lane
way?
each way, but it is expandable. It could be expanded to 2 lanes in each way, but the original construction will be just one. And there is a plan line that has been completed to do that. And it's the obvious route. Do you know where the doctors and dentists office are on West Dunn? And then there's this field, and then there's
Right.
housing below that. It kind of goes right through there. So it continues along the route where Dale dead ends into Maine. It goes straight across there and up and over those hills, and then at Dunn Avenue there'll be a signal, and then it'll go up to DeWitt and join there, and I'm not sure exactly how it connects or who stops and all that, but that'll be.
And when is the anticipated time frame on that?
We think we're very close to shovel ready, so the Measure B did pass, and that was part of Measure B. So when Measure B starts getting funded, which I think starts in like March or April, then we can get in line for those funds, and we'll be working with the VTA on that in terms of
Thank
where we stand
Thank you.
to get a date. Well, let's have a cookie. Thank you.
Because it's an old question. I did see you online. I was trying, you mentioned about the call. And so I went online, like looking for information about that. What had happened with that? Because it seems like it used to be a hospital. Was it a hospital before and now it's closed?
Yeah.
Okay, so, and then there's your picture right there. I said, oh my God, how long has it been a mayor here? I'm new to Morgan Hills, so I didn't know much about you. And then I read that in 2015, a company tried to buy that, and also San Luis